we are going to write our introduction and our conclusion to our argument essay about the most unreliable narrator. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go through a prezi or two on writing an introduction and conclusion. So I'm going to go back and forth between the prezi and writing my introduction, and you will do the same thing. So the recipe for a strong introduction, this is really cheesy but super helpful. So you got to have a hook, a tag, background information, and a thesis statement. We've already got our thesis statement because we wrote that the other day. So we're really just going to do these other things. So I know you guys have done hooks before because this is where we make our reader actually care to read our essay. Then we have to think about the different ways we can do a hook. You could do a quotation. It could be a quotation from the text. It could be something semi-related to the text. So these are just examples. You could also do a question. Here's my only rule for the question. I hate have you ever questions. And when we look at this, it's going to say make sure that it's not a simple yes or no question. It needs to be related to your theme, and it has them something to consider. It's not just, have you ever been to a theme park? So for example, how do people become bullies? Something that really gets people thinking. Or, and this is my favorite, is a startling statement or a fact that is startling. 1 in 7 students in grades K-12 is either a bully or a victim of bullying. That's a pretty startling statement. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna pause this prezi while we write our hook. So I'm going to give you a second. Pause me while you write your hook. Okay, I'm going to show you guys my hook. So I decided to do a startling statement. I just Googled facts about unreliable narrators, and I read about the first unreliable narrator that anyone has record of. One of the first examples of a narrator lying to or tricking a reader was in a text called The Frogs, written between the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC. After reading the whole story, the narrator simply said, "And then I woke up." Okay, now we're going to go to the next step, which unfortunately I clicked through a little bit. My bad. Okay, tag and topic. This is where you're going to give the author and the title of the text. You could just do it super basic like this. You could do it a little bit better like this, or you could go really complex and give some information about what the story is actually about. Go ahead and pause me while you write your tag and topic. Okay, I'm going to share with you my tag and topic. Charles Battersby, in his article, "We Were Lying About the Exit," explores how video game narrators have started to use this literary tradition. So I got my author and I got my article. Then we move into background information and context. You only need to include your idea within the greater story and what is needed for your reader to understand your point. So for example, like what is important in the story if there's like a longer story, okay? Maybe some background on the story. You can have more than one sentence here, but you do need to stay focused on your thesis, okay? So my thesis is about the unreliable narrators. So I don't really need to give any information about, because I've already kind of given a little background information where I said explores how video game narrators have started to use this literary tradition. So I'm just going to kind of define here what an unreliable narrator is. Okay, pause me while you choose what background information your reader might need. All right, so I decided to include that there are 9 different classifications of unreliable narrators, but the generally accepted definition is a narrator who intentionally or unintentionally misleads the reader or consumer of the product. So that just tells you that look what an unreliable narrator is. It gives us a baseline for what we are doing here. Then we're going to go into our thesis, which we have already written. It states the purpose. It's going to be what you're going to prove. It's a fact. And it's going to be the last sentence of your introduction. That's super important because then as they read the essay, it's like, this is what I'm proving. Okay, so go ahead and add your thesis. All right. So I just kind of used a transitional sentence here. Though unreliable narrators are often thought of as book characters, video games have created the most unreliable narrators in history. I said it as a fact. That's what I'm going to be proving. No questions. All right. So you should have an entire introduction written. I want you to pause me for a second and read through it and just make sure it makes sense. And then we're going to move on to the conclusion. Go ahead and pause me. Okay, so the recipe for a strong conclusion, on the other hand, you're going to restate your thesis, you're going to summarize your points, and you're going to remind the reader of the big idea and explain how it's an example of social commentary. This is a little bit different than us, but whatever. Restate my thesis, it's going to be, so the intro is general information, the body gives us some specific details, and the conclusion kind of pulls us back together. So the reader is like, oh yeah, that's what was given examples of. So step one is to restate our thesis. You've just spent the whole body proving your thesis, so we're just reminding them. So it's going to be slightly different, but very similar. The time is right for Jonas to stand up against the unjust restrictions in his community once he has created a plan with that help of the giver. He implements his plan that will change his community forever. And then when we restate it, it's not always an easy decision to stand up to injustice. We can feel more confident to take action. However, once we have created a plan and are able to implement it with the help of others. It's kind of hard to read. So my original thesis was that video game characters have created the most unreliable narrators in history. So I'm going to write my thesis in just slightly different words, but it's the same idea. Okay, so pause me while you write your thesis. All right, so I said games such as Eternal Darkness have outdone even the most unreliable literary narrators by employing new techniques never before seen in books. So prove my thesis again. The video game narrators are more unreliable than book narrators. Then I'm going to summarize my two main points or two or three main points. You're just reminding them what you said in the body paragraphs. So you can look at your topic sentences for your body paragraphs if you get stuck. I'm not going to read that example because that's not super helpful. So my main points were that we have several different kinds of unreliable narrators in the video games. We have ones that are crazy, we have ones that are unreliable on purpose, and we have ones that are bragging. So unreliable narrators in video games come in many different forms, including those who are insane, those who are simply exaggerating the truth to look better, and those who are intentionally misleading the consumer for fun, right? So those were my main points. Go ahead and pause me while you write your main points. And then we have to think, why should they care? This is the hard part. The conclusion needs to show the reader why this matters to them. So we have to think, what is the big idea? Why am I bothering to write this at all, other than the fact that your teacher's making you? So for this essay that they were writing, they're pulling back and saying a lot of literature is written as a form of social commentary. What does that mean? Why are they trying to say that? So the question is a sense of closure to the paper, to bring it full circle. So I'm going to say something about why do we need to recognize that unreliable narrators are a thing? So we know to kind of take everything with a grain of salt, right? So since unreliable narrators are so prevalent in books and video games and other media, it's important for readers and players it's important for readers and players to analyze the validity of the information they're given. All right, so now I have an intro and a conclusion. You should also have an intro and conclusion. go ahead and take some time to continue fleshing out your body paragraphs and have a wonderful rest of your day.